social media grabs a hold of women's brain in a certain way that it just literally completely changes their way to independently think for themselves.
If I hadn't discovered decentering men content here on this app, to be honest, I think I would still be married. I would still be making excuses. I would still be gaslighting myself. I would still be trying to figure out what I can do to make this work, trying to figure out what can I do to make my husband happy. I saw this app a couple of years ago, and I had been married up until that point about 15 years. I saw a video on my FYP from a decentering men content creator who was stitching a video about a woman who was talking about her husband mistreating her. And she said, your husband doesn't like you. Now, I'm an older woman in my 50s, married for a long time. And when I heard that message, I was really taken aback. I was thinking there has to be something else going on. There's other reasons why he's treating her that way. The explanation cannot be he doesn't like his own wife. Scrolled away and said, what is this messaging? What are these videos about? But I thought about it because in my own life, I had many instances like that video where my husband had mistreated me or said things to me that were very, very hurtful. And the immediate feeling that I had when it happened was, this isn't the way you treat someone that you love. It's almost like you don't like me. I ever saw this content years before TikTok even existed. But seeing it from this content creator, this person doesn't know me, doesn't know anything about my life, but hearing the same message that was in my mind all those years prior, I couldn't turn away from it. I had to know more. And so I started watching more of her content, other content creators that were talking about these same ideas, realized this is my life. This is happening to me, and I can't deny it anymore. So that content.
So basically, in a nutshell, TikTok or a content creator's series of videos led to her getting a divorce. Simply what this summary is, right? I think women are affected by social media in a very different way than men. Obviously, it's bad on both ends in terms of you looking at content on social media and then deciding to filtrate that to the decisions you make in your own life. That's already a bad thing in itself, but men are affected by it in a sexual way. Porn, looking at certain things that can throw them out of alignment and distract them. Women are affected by it in a more of a, when they consume this content, like they go all in terms of like believing it, almost being brainwashed in a way. Not to say that porn doesn't do the same thing for men, but for women, it leads them down this whole path of, we don't need men, let's decenter men, we need to be in charge, we own the space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So much so that it can cause them to divorce their husbands, or maybe even look at the men in their life in a different way, or just a stranger, and just look at a man as a stranger and just think that, or just hate him for no apparent reason. Now, we don't know the details of her marriage or anything like that. I would want to ask her, like, would you ever want to be remarried? Because you putting this online is already, no man is gonna look at that and want to be married to that. But I think social media grabs a hold of women's brain in a certain way that it just literally completely changes their way to independently think for themselves. Not to say that they were always good at that in the first place. And that's no knock on women, man. That's no knock on them. They just, women in the, in general terms or in mass forms will always want to agree with the crowd or agree with what the consensus is versus thinking independently. That's why they do need men in their life, because men are the opposite. Men don't just take a whole bunch of content, mature men, I would say, like younger men who are still trying to figure out who they are. Yeah, obviously they can be controlled in that sense, but grown men don't, they generally will take the right answer versus trying to go with what are everybody else agreeing to, right? And that's why I think women really do need men in their life to guide them and to direct them. But yeah, I don't agree with the content of it's silly to me. It's absolutely silly. I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in.